Good morning. This is the Contreras Report. I am Raul Lowry Contreras, your correspondent. Today we start with events in Mexico that affect everyone in North America. I say that because nothing is truer in 2021 than that statement. Then we'll move east 8,000 miles where we look at how the past year has affected the region that was racked with a 44-day futuristic war that redrew borders and liberated thousands of square kilometers from invaders that had occupied the land for almost 30 years. Back 8,000 miles then to the United States, where President Joe Biden suffered the worst week of his presidency that was capped with, perhaps, the best day of his presidency, the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Surprise, Speaker Nancy Pelosi did not deliver the winning votes. 13 Republicans voted for the bill, saving it from defeat. The vote was 228 votes for. They needed 218, but only 215 Democrats voted for it. So, without the Republican votes, the bill would have gone down to defeat. Let's start with Mexico. Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador stubs his toe and trips over his ego. 110 years ago, Mexicans rose up and fought for land and liberty, tierra y libertad, and they fought for freedom from a dictatorship run by an oligarchy that itself was run by one man. They fought so the individual Mexican could help run his or her country. 3 years ago, individual Mexicans continued what they started in 2000 when they rejected the PRI, the PRI party, and elected Vicente Fox president. 6 years later, Mexicans continued to vote independently and elected Felipe Calderon to replace Vicente Fox. Then came Enrique Peña Nieto and the old ways, the PRI. 2018's presidential election produced a runaway victory for the quintessential old Mexican way of one-man rule. At least that is what President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador thinks. He is the one-man ruler who rules by decree because, in his own words, he has different information than the rest of Mexico. This time, private enterprise Mexicans are fighting back enough for AMLO and his Morena party to decide to postpone until next April a vote on disassembling Mexico's energy generation and forcing the country to swallow a future of oil, corruption, and a bankrupt national oil company, PEMEX, Petroleos Mexicanos. Despite the courts fighting him and good government people fighting him, AMLO, which is his nickname, is attempting to destroy private electrical generation in Mexico that has blossomed since Mexico changed energy laws to allow foreign companies to enter the energy market in 2014. Private enterprise has blossomed into Mexico's energy production. Private money from Spain, Canada, and the U.S., along with other countries, has entered Mexico to create energy supplies, to generate oil and coal-free electricity. Lopez Obrador has stopped that and is insisting the federal government must control electricity and that the law should forever limit private enterprise in electricity and that his own government should be guaranteed 54% of electrical generation and 100% of electrical distribution. Some of this information comes from Mexico News Daily and the newspaper El Universal. Amid questions and criticism, electrical reform initiative is postponed. The vote for it is postponed until next April. The Morena party, that's AMLO's party, and its allies in the lower house of Congress have agreed to postpone the vote on President Lopez Obrador's controversial electrical reform in the midst of a growing chorus of criticism. But it doesn't appear to be the critics who have delayed the vote, but the lack of support for it among lawmakers. The reform, which the government insists is necessary to guarantee low energy prices, requires a 2/3 majority vote in Congress because it means changing the Constitution. On Thursday, Morena, the Labor Party, and the Green Party decided to wait until next April before proceeding with the reform initiative. Keep in mind, they are the ones that call this a reform initiative. It's not a reform, it's a regression. Among the critics this week were U.S. lawmakers and Lopez Obrador's first finance minister. In addition, U.S. Ambassador Ken Salazar stepped in with a Twitter post expressing concern. He is the new ambassador to Mexico. He formerly served as Secretary of the Interior under Barack Obama and was a U.S. Senator before that. Quote, I had important meetings with the Mexican government to discuss the reform of the power sector. I want to learn more about the impetus for the proposed constitutional reform. I also expressed serious concerns, Salazar said, for the United States. We committed to continuing our dialogue on these critical issues, unquote. Former Finance Minister Carlos Ursua warned that the reform could prove to be the worst mistake of the Lopez Obrador government, with effects in the short, medium, and long term. Speaking on Wednesday before the Citizens Movement bloc of lawmakers a week ago in the lower house of Congress, he said the plan underestimates what may happen as a result of the rejection of clean energy. Quote, it won't only have a strong environmental impact, but will also cause a long and costly legal process for the compensation they will have to pay. And all this to defend a state company that doesn't have the resources or the efficiency to guarantee electricity supply throughout the country, unquote. It would also have a negative effect on the foreign investment that Mexico needs due to the coronavirus pandemic, said Ursua, who left the federal cabinet after less than a year as finance minister due to differences of opinion with the president. He described the reform as, quote, the great challenge that Mexico faces, unquote, and called on opposition parties to fight it. If it passes, he said, it will be extremely dangerous for the nation. In the U.S., 40 Republican lawmakers calling for pressuring Mexico over what they call discriminatory actions that hurt U.S. energy companies. They said in a letter on Wednesday that Mexico's plans violate the terms of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement and called for a timely and clear response to policies and actions that they say violate and undermine the treaty. The reform would give the Federal Electricity Commission, the CFE, 54% of the electricity market and eliminate two independent government energy regulators. A draft study by the U.S. Department of Energy warned last month that the bill would pump emissions up by 65% as more electricity would be generated by inefficient and dirty power plants operated by the Federal Electricity Commission. It also predicted higher electrical generation costs, which of course means higher costs to the consumer. Now, some good news about Mexico, specifically about Baja California. This is an article in Washington, D.C.'s Daily Caller, published every day, that was published on May 4th, 2018. I wrote it, Raul Lowry Contreras. The culture shock I experienced when I left the nonprofit economy in the U.S. several decades ago for what many consider the big time for-profit economy just over the Mexican border from San Diego was not as sobering as the culture shock I experienced when I returned to Mexico to look at business in today's Mexico. My experience was immeasurably positive. The first thing I noticed on my return in 2018 was the number of women in management and leadership roles in Baja California business. When I operated tours to Tijuana in the 1970s, one of my bilingual guides was a young lady student from the Autonomous University of Baja California. She graduated and got a job as a bank teller. 7 years later, she became the first woman bank manager in the history of Tijuana, Baja California. That pleased me. When I reported to work in what was then northern Mexico's largest business, the decades-old world-famous Caliente racetrack in Tijuana, with its 1,500 employees, very few business or professional women existed in Baja California. None at the racetrack, none in local or state government. None in banking. None. There were a few in Rotary, Kiwanis, or other chambers of commerce, and some were starting to get into politics, but very few. The first person I met in Tijuana in May 2018 was a young woman, Alejandra Chavez, an engineer working in quality control at the 5,000-employee medical device company Medtronic, which is managed from Minneapolis, Minnesota. She has completed half her 2-year studies for a master's degree from Baja California's respected private CETIS University. CETIS is spelled C-E-T-Y-S, and its partner St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. Her undergraduate work was at Tijuana's Jesuit Ibero-American University. Yes, a private Baja California university partnered with an American public university in graduate education. This is truly a hands across the border program. It also reflects a massive hands across the border industrial program. Medtronic designs and manufactures medical devices of all sorts, from catheters to complicated devices for open heart surgery. It is one of the world's largest medical equipment development companies and has been granted more than, get this, 53,000 patents. The company invested $2.2 billion in research and development in fiscal year 2017. Medtronic stands out not only for its 5,000 on-site employees, but also with its native Mexican management. 40% of its professional engineering staff is female. That will grow. The company has a formal program called Medtronic Women's Networking. The company operates in what's referred to as a cluster. Baja California may host one of the largest medical device clusters in the world. Currently, there are 76 medical device manufacturers in Baja California state. 49 of these companies are in Tijuana. A staggering number of people, 64,000, manufacture medical devices in Baja California, 50,000 in Tijuana alone. Miguel Rochin, a native Tijuanan, is Medtronic's Vice President, Mexico Operations. He's the guy. He's the boss. He also manages a facility in Guaymas, Mexico, 1,000 kilometers south of his office in Tijuana in Sonora State. After meeting him, I went to the million-person state capital, Mexicali, 120 miles east on a road that didn't even exist when I worked in Mexico 50 years ago. Here is where the private nonprofit CETIS University enters the picture. CETIS, C-E-T-Y-S, is an acronym for what loosely translates to Center of Higher Technology Education. In Spanish, it is Centro Enseñanza Técnico y Superior. At CETIS, most students are Mexican, some are American. The tuition is less expensive than at U.S. universities, hence some American students. Many classes are taught in English, and more importantly, employers are lined up to hire them when they graduate. CETIS can't graduate enough to fill demand. CETIS has 3 campuses. Tijuana with 3,000 students. The main campus in the state capital of Mexicali, 120 miles east of Tijuana with 5,000 students, and the newest campus in the Pacific seaport city of Ensenada, 150 kilometers southwest of Mexicali. Sports fans are familiar with CETIS because its high schools play American football and regularly play full schedules on the Southern California high school circuit. At the university level, recent news is of its application to join the NCAA Class III intercollegiate competition in the U.S. It has been approved, and it will probably start competing with American colleges and universities as soon as the pandemic is declared over. The university has myriad links with the private sector: American, Japanese, Mexican, Korean, German, and Chinese companies that operate in Baja, some of the names of which are familiar: Gulfstream, General Dynamics, United Technologies, Medtronic, Kenworth, Trucks, South Korea's LG, Toyota, and Honeywell. Recently, a large local company, LMI Aerospace, was purchased by a Belgian company that wants into the North American market. The links SETIS has developed were explained to me by Jorge Sosa Lopez, PhD, Director of the Center of Innovation, and Jose Luis Arroyo Pelayo, Corporate Relations Director, with a PhD from Stanford University. These and dozens of other companies line up every year to hire SETIS graduates that are not only technically equipped, but they speak the international language of engineering and manufacturing, English. That is what executives I interviewed told me, in English. In today's Baja California, Samsung manufactures flat-screen televisions with 3,200 employees. Giant Taiwanese Foxconn makes TVs with 4,500 employees. Infocus is building facilities to join the other 76 factories making medical devices. America's Medline Company is building a 100,000 square foot factory to make medical devices by 3,000 employees. Skyworks, a Massachusetts company that is, quote, invisible, because you never hear of them, produces 9.5 million products a day in its 360,000 square foot plant in Mexicali that operates 24 hours a day. In Mexicali, there are companies from 18 different countries functioning, and they all need engineers. Of 160 Mexican companies making medical devices nationally, 76 are in Baja California, employing, as I've noted, 64,000 people. Interviews with SETIS University teachers and officials, factory general managers, industry executives, and entrepreneurs can be summed up in a few words. If it can be designed and built, it can be designed, built, and produced by SETIS engineering graduates who speak English and Spanish. In the words of the treasurer of the medical device cluster of Baja California Trade Group that manufactures wheelchairs, orthopedic equipment, catheters, open heart surgery devices, etc., Miguel Ángel Feliz Diaz Alonso, on medical devices, he says, quote, if it can be built, we can do it, all 64,000 of us. So it goes in Baja California. The state is booming, booming. There are help wanted signs everywhere. I see one coming here to the studio that says 6,000 pesos a week. Sign up now with 1,000 peso bonus. 6,000 pesos is $300 a week. Mind you, 50 years ago, that same factory would have paid $40 a week for a 48-hour week. Now they're paying $300 for 40-hour weeks. Plus, there's free lunch for everybody. Plus, there's free transportation for those that need it in buses, small buses from all over the city. Plus, if they have children, if the women working there have children, they get free child care. So, and then they can take their lunch hour to go have lunch with their children in the child care center. Things have really, really taken a great, great turn in Baja California and northern Mexico as a whole. We are thankful in California that Baja California is where it is, because Baja California / Mexico is California's best customer. We're going to take a break now, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.